Today's project is going to be to disassemble this Remington Whitmore Lifter. It's kind of unique because of the way it opens up. You lift the lever up. I'll start by removing the fore-end. It's an old-fashioned type, muzzleloader type arrangement because the snap-on type fore-ends hadn't been invented yet. I'm anticipating it being a little bit stubborn, but it slid right out. It was nice that it had its own little retention system there so you wouldn't lose the wedge out of it. The barrels come off a pretty standard way, except you lift the lever instead of pushing it to the side. I'm cleaning out the screw slot. That's just about standard operating procedure with these old guns. You want to take a pick of some sort and clean out all the crud. And you really need an appropriate sized screw bit. You notice I'm putting some white knuckle pressure on this, pushing down and turning to break this old screw loose. This is the one that holds the lock plates from side to side. At about 2/3 of the way out, take a gentle tap and push it through. That'll knock the lock plate off the other side. No need to try to pry it out or anything like that. That usually works. Sometimes the screws are in the back side of the locks. I use a brass punch on the right side through the hole to tap on the plate through the left side, break it loose. Being careful to make sure you're on the metal and not on the wood. The only part on this old gun that looked like it had been molested is the screws that hold the back tang in. They'd been pulled out and replaced in the wrong holes or something because they didn't line up. Otherwise it looked like this old gun hadn't ever been taken apart since it left the factory. I'll replace them by putting them in the correct hole and getting them timed. This bottom guard should just turn and break loose, but it's frozen and it remained frozen the rest of the day. I really don't need to move it, so I didn't force it. Using a product called Blue Creeper. We've used this for many years in our sawmill business, and it works great, especially if you can leave it a few days. I also use it when I reassembled everything. This bit proved to be a little bit too thick and wide. I needed to remodel it a little bit to make it usable. Here's what the bit looks like after I remodeled it using a Dremel tool there. Narrowed it down considerably, keeping the points parallel sides. The little ratchet lever and screwdriver combination here give plenty of torque to be able to turn these out. Even with the extra leverage, it wasn't enough. I had to resort to using an impact wrench, which is this thing with an orange handle here. It ratchets as you hammer it down. Took about a 16-ounce hammer and whacked it. It takes a little bit of courage to do it this way, but sometimes it's stubborn. It's the only way you can get these hard screws out. I was a bit of a loss to why that screw was even in there, but it turns out that it gains access to a screw under that goes from the top tang to the bottom trigger plate. I'm trying to show it there, but my old fat hands are in the way. I was prepared for the worst, but it turns out that this wasn't much of a problem getting this screw out. It actually came out fairly easily. Taking the bottom trigger plate and assembly off, the kids call it a fire control group, I guess, but it sometimes can be a challenge. I've already broken these loose using the impact wrench and taken out the screws. Keep them separate because they were made individually for each hole and timed. If you put them in the wrong hole, they won't line up. Knocking the bottom plate out, I use a brass punch through the openings in the water table here, gently tapping it in a few places to see if it breaks loose. Sometimes these can be a real struggle to get out. You might have to soak it for a few days in penetrating oil and maybe get a little more brutal. Some are just sheet metal, so it's difficult to get them out without damaging them. But if you're persistent at it, it'll work. This one proved to be fairly easy to get out. Now I can get to the top side of the threads on the trigger guard and put a little more blue creeper on it and then the other screws. I'll put these on all the threads as I reassemble them. This will make the next time much easier. Now that I have just the buttstock off, I'm examining down around, looking at the cracks in the lock area and the tangs and stuff for places that may need to be repaired. And yes, I found several cracks. Fortunately, all the wood's there are mostly solid. The heel of the old gun has seen a little bit of damage. I'll need to repair that, and a little chip out there on the corner. Other than that, it's just pretty scuzzy. I used a 6mm socket to pull out the ferrules that hold the firing pins in and clean them up good. Bless their hearts, whoever had this gun kept dumping oil into the firing pin pockets so that they was not rusted in, but they were packed with nasty dried grease and grime. Here's a before picture of the old gun. Here's after I did some repairs and cleaned it up and reassembled it. Hope you enjoyed the video.